Welcome to the Employers Legal Lounge with your host, Michael Sullivan and Associates Managing Partner, Eric De Wames. Each month, we dive deep into a specific topic to provide you with valuable insights and guidance for navigating the complex world of California employment regulations. This podcast is provided for informational purposes and does not constitute legal advice. Only your attorney, with complete knowledge of the facts and circumstances of your situation, can determine how the relevant laws apply. Now, on to the episode.
Welcome, everybody, to Employers Legal Lounge. I am your host, Eric De Wames, Managing Partner at Michael Sullivan and Associates Employment Law Department. Employers Legal Lounge is a monthly podcast for HR specialists, employers, small businesses, large businesses, insurance carriers, risk adjusters, third-party administrators, anybody who's interested in the ever-evolving laws, both federally and, of course, in our wild, wild west of California employment laws. Every month, we bring to you some resources that are available to you and some changes in the law landscape. As I do every podcast, and this is our first podcast of the year, I bring to you industry experts in the area, and today is no exception. In fact, I have two that we'll be having joining us today who are on my right and my left. And the reason we are lucky enough to have them live and in person with me as opposed to Zoom and online is because we are at PIHRA's California Employment Law Update in Riverside all together. So to my left is Rafael Rivera, our PIHRA CEO and my dear friend. Welcome, Rafael.
Thank you. I'm happy to have you here on location and speaking today on AI.
On AI, artificial intelligence, it's a thing. And we are trying to make sure everybody has those resources. And my dear friend and colleague and on so many boards with me as well, Dana Mayhew, who is the founder for TDC Consulting, also the government advocacy team chair for PIHRA, also on my college relations team as well, and adjunct professor for Claremont College and UCLA. The list goes on because she has so many talents. Dana Mayhew, thank you for being here today.
It's my absolute honor. Delighted to be here.
It's like, how does she find the time?
I don't know. As I was going through it, I was So, as we usually start, before we get into substance, Employers Legal Lounge, it's a place where you can have any beverage you like to join us and sit down and relax. And for us, it might be maybe a little bit of tequila to join together. So cheers to everybody, whatever your drink of choice might be.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friends.
Cheers.
Welcome.
Cheers. Cheers. Mm.
Oh, so good. And to my friend who actually gave this fine tequila to me, it's called La Llorona. Thank you so much. I won't mention your name in case you don't want it to be mentioned online. But let's start with
your session should be sponsored.
It should. My ticket,
Yeah.
Sponsored by.
Yeah, I totally, I'm for that.
I love that idea. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Put a note on that. Where we probably should start, because we're not going to be able to have my dear friend Rafael here too long. We're in the amidst a conference, and he has so many different obligations out there. I wanted to start with what we're doing with professionals in human resources and all the great work that it does. So my friend Rafael, tell everybody a little bit. I mention PIHRA all the time on almost every podcast and the work I do. But for those who are not familiar with it and what we do and what you do, if you can give a little bit of background.
Well, as Eric mentioned, we are here in Riverside for our California Employment Law Seminar Series. This is one of 5 locations this year. We just got back from Del Mar, and this fall, after the legislative calendar, we'll be in LA in Orange County. These are full-day programs that you can get all of the latest information to be well prepared and compliant for your workplaces. So I highly encourage you. The series will draw, I think, 1,200 total attendees in person and online, which is one of our options for the fall event. Now, as we're in Riverside, we are hosted today by our PIHRA Riverside chapter. We have 18 professional chapters across Southern California, and it gives HR professionals an opportunity to connect with peers in person. We all need our friends, our
Yep.
people that can help
our tribe,
not only,
for sure.
with our, professional sharing and learning, but also those that, can understand the challenges that HR has every day in trying to serve our employees and our employers.
I can tell you, I had the privilege of speaking at all of the versions in the different locations this year at CELU. And one of the things that always strikes me is the collective excitement and joy of these people coming together. Because, in HR, and one of the things I hear all the time is they feel like an island, working with their employers, wherever they might be. And it's a resource of coming together with people who understand you. And that's part of the fun for me. I love presenting. I love, educating, but seeing them network and connect and have a smile on their face and a joy, especially after so many years of being apart from one another, it's pretty fabulous. So thank you for doing that and making that available.
And not only do we learn from speakers like you, but there's a lot of peer sharing where you've gone through something, you find somebody else in your industry that has had the same concerns, and not only does that person connect well because now you feel it's like, oh my gosh, this is my soulmate, like this, they've gone through these same issues, but you can learn to overcome the challenges by learning from others.
Yeah, over the years, not only that, you just develop kind of a family network of people over the years. I mean, these are some of my closest people that I have you can rely on as things happen, as we have these wildfires and the disasters of people leaning on what the resources might be. And as all of you tuning in saw from the postings, we are going to be talking a little bit and to some extent about the wildfire and relief and available resources to you. But what I notice here is people really leaning on each other. And we have so many people in our chapters that have lost their own homes, their businesses are now, looking for work. And having that network is, I think, so critical, just regularly, but especially in days like these.
We know so far 99 members have been directly affected. As you mentioned, some have lost everything.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're trying to do what we can for our friends, volunteer leaders and members, and are going to encourage everyone to lean in on going to a chapter event, just so that you can really further establish the relationships that you have. And for those that are not members of the organization, we're certainly trying to bring resources from behind the paywall available to the communities at a time of need. And we'll want to encourage HR professionals to just come to our communities. We have there's PIHRA members, there's SURE members, there's dual members. And for those that are not members of PIHRA, again, we're going to try to figure out how we can open our doors to, create those connections. And I know SHRM's trying to work with us directly. We're SHRM's largest affiliate, not only in California, but worldwide, in trying to bring those resources to as many HR practitioners and employers as possible.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So, and those who didn't know, and I get the question a lot, is how does SHRM and PIHRA work together? PIHRA, as Rafael mentioned, is an affiliate of SHRM. So we work directly with SHRM through these processes, and we share resources. It becomes really important. So thank you for doing that.
And also the state council, SHRM California, which you are a chair of, or a co-chair right now, and I think Dana, she's got a hat there as well.
Legislative director, yes.
Right.
That they have been, very welcoming. Our sister affiliates from around California want to, help us with resources, so they're invested. And I'm so thankful at the community of volunteer leaders that have stepped up to assist us and assist our members in the HR community at a time of need.
Yeah, the outpouring was incredible of love and support. A few of the resources out there, and all the resources we're going to be talking about today will be on our landing page for this podcast. There's going to be quite a few, but PIHRA provided a free webinar, I believe yesterday, but we're going to have a link to go and view it as well that goes into detail about some of the wildfire relief resources, obligations for employers, especially under Cal OSHA, wage and hour laws. We're going to talk about that today in a nutshell in our brief time, but the longer version and materials will be available to you online and on that link. So thank you for making that available to people during this time. SHRM California has also created a singular landing page for all of these different resources that we will also provide to you that was just created. So there's so many different resources everywhere. So everybody's like, well, where's this one? And we're trying to make a place where you can just go to one stop that you can find all of it. Loan relief, obligations for employers, et cetera. So, but we have some other exciting things before that are coming up in the next few months for PIHRA. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So in addition to what we're doing to continue to provide relief efforts, because this is going to be an ongoing thing.
Absolutely.
We've seen this across the state, that it's a multi-year process for people to come back with their personal their homes and then their businesses. PIHRA will be doing its annual conference in May the 4th through the 6th in Anaheim, the California HR Conference. For those that need continuing education, we're going to have 28 hours of content that's going to be available in person and on demand, and an additional 16 hours that will be presented in person only. 12 tracks, so we'll cover everything that everyone needs, from employment law to DE&I, culture, leadership. And this year we introduced a new registration type. We're always trying to get back to our community and find ways to create engagement. We now created a unique one-day registration. It's only for HR practitioners. So if you are practicing HR within an organization, and you get the absolute lowest rate. And the reason we did that is so that we can engage more nonprofits that may have lower budgets. If you don't have that much time to get out of the office, that you have an opportunity to come in again, have community in and out. So new ways to engage folks. In the fall, probably the last week of October, we'll be doing our employment law seminar series in LA and OC. And then tomorrow, we will be opening registration for our new HR cruise. And,
I'm excited about this.
So Eric's going to be a first-time cruiser.
Yeah, never been on a cruise.
We already have
never spoken on a cruise.
That
So have I.
are excited. So February 22nd, 2026 is when the cruise will leave from LA to Cabo. There'll be 12 hours of total content, and it'll be a different way to be engaged. So this is going to be highly experiential. So if
I'm all in,
if you like to learn, but you also want to connect with people, whether it's a tequila tasting or karaoke, hey, we will be doing that.
Yep. No, it's an exciting idea. I'm really excited to be part of it and join. I'll have my Dramamine patch and I'll be there with you.
I'll have my wristband.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in this experiment that I mean, being with everybody is going to be, I think, fantastic. And then we can get a tan too as we go. So can't go wrong. Yeah, so exciting things. We'll keep everybody posted on these conference events. They will be on the links as well. And for registration for CHR in May 4th. Look
May
there.
the 4th be
May the
with
4th
you.
be with you.
Yeah.
I will be there speaking as well, and it's always a blast. It's my favorite conference of the year. So please join us for that, and then we'll put links up for the registration for the cruise, and fill that boat up. We're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, I think it's going to fill up very quickly.
I think so. Yeah,
Especially with all the SHRM California folks saying, "Hey, I want in."
We're all in. That is going to be a fun time. So thank you, my friend, for being here. Thank you for all that you do and the resources you've made available to everyone. I appreciate you. And I won't bug you too much longer because I know people are knocking at the door saying, Rafael.
I know, they're like, hey, I think the audio's still going.
We kidnapped them.
That's, well, it's like I was persuaded with,
Tequila.
the tequila.
I know my
Their
audience.
sponsor?
Huh? Well, I appreciate you, my friend.
Well, thank you
And,
both for being fantastic volunteers.
love
It's like,
doing it.
Our pleasure.
It's like, you make my job more enjoyable.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I'm gonna leave
Our
you guys.
pleasure.
And one last cheers for you.
One last
One more
cheer.
cheers. to
Cheers,
you.
my friend.
Yeah.
I haven't even said Paga yet when we were drinking. So usually that's the part of the drinking game.
I'll
Chris
come back
is-
as soon as possible. All right, I'll let you guys continue the conversation.
All righty.
Take care, my friend. All right.
We're
So
gonna-
as we continue, and let me just take care of this. There we go. So what I wanted to get into, Dana, is a couple of things that you do and that we do together.
Okay.
Obviously, college relations is a big passion, and you as an adjunct professor have been consummate in making sure that these students have the resources they need, that they have the mentorship. So it's been an honor to work as the co-chair on it and to work with you on the committee.
Thank you.
As well. What are your hopes and visions for the students for this year?
Oh, gosh. Well, on an immediate level, I am the student advisor for Claremont Graduate University HR students, and that's a certificate program. And we are applying to the CalSHRM's case competition. So that's very exciting. We won, Claremont Graduate University won in, I think it was 2023 or 22. So we won at the graduate level. That was our first year. It's more important than just winning a competition. It is providing them with this strategy with which to think about problems, resolve the problems, and present yourself as a professional would who is applying, a professional consultancy team who is applying for a job. So this means that they have to not only understand the subject at hand and not only understand SHRM's competency levels and all of the different models for analyzing problems, but they have to present as professionals. But more importantly, they learn how to be the consummate team,
Right.
because they're given absolutely no time to prepare. It's like 1 week or 2 weeks.
It's very limited time.
They have to put that team together, analyze. So we're actually started last night. And I'm going to be working with them on how to present, how to be effective as a presenter and how to research. So what's important about that? What's really critically important, that these are college students. And one of the things I'm trying to imbue upon our college students is the concept of, look, grades are important, but you need to get an education too. And your education is out there. Join PIHRA, join SHRM, join your local organizations, get known, show that you're savvy, show that you can work as a team, show that you're willing to even coach some of us who don't have the same technological skills. And my students, God love them, they don't necessarily have the skills out in the real world. So it's really critical.
What college student does.
Yeah.
And
I certainly didn't
and I
as
think
well.
I think it's so wonderful. And as I actually meet with these students and their feedback on doing this competition, their feedback on their faculty advisors, especially you, and the impact it has for the mentorship is
critical.
key. So for those out there who are listening and in your HR roles and settled into your profession, consider giving back a little bit to these students. And I can tell you it pays back tenfold when you do. They're just looking for that resource that tells them really how it is in the world. I mean, I always tell my HR professionals that volunteer, not to scare them off entirely, but to at least let them know, the kinds of struggles that you deal with and how you manage and the multitasking skills you have and the networking skills that you need out there. So we have our next generation of these wonderful HR professionals that are leading our organizations to make our companies successful. So that's really the goal, is to give this path forward. And it's really exciting. We're also going to be trying to bring in a chapter, one of our student chapters, to the CAR conference. We'll put together a little bit of a competition as we did last year. Last year, Cal Poly Pomona one came, and they had the most wonderful time. Such a wonderful group.
Oh, that was exciting.
Of students, and had the best time. We're doing it also for SHRM California. Last year we had San Diego come up, and they get to visit the Capitol with us. Along those lines, that's your other hat, my other hat too, legislative director for SHRM California, and which is the same translation to government affairs team for you. And what we do is we try and stay, especially you are so great at this, ahead of the new laws that are coming out, and coordinating with our legislators to see what's coming down the pike. Because once these laws are passed, we are stuck with them. And how do they really impact the workplace? How do they really impact employees? Even though there might be a good intention, it doesn't always have that result.
Well, we are a cobweb of laws in the state of California, and I love it that we're progressive and we're ahead of the curve usually. But it's in our enthusiasm for promulgating laws, we make it overly complex. And one of my real concerns is, rather than just complaining about the law, our team, we want to get ahead of it. We want to get ahead of it. We want to find out, source what's really going on in the 18 different districts or chapters that we have. We will need to hear from the different HR professionals, because what's happening in, say, San Bernardino will be much different than what's happening in Burbank, Glendale.
True.
And we really need to understand how a law might be absolutely have no impact on maybe an agricultural area, and in Los Angeles it might gum up the works forever. So we try to get a hold of on top of that. And one of the most exciting things, this is our busy season, as you might know. The laws are going to come in a fury. Last year, I think we had 400 that we looked at. The team from Cal SHRM, which Michael Kalt and then Eric are both involved with, they start the process going by culling it down to something reasonable like 80. And then we get together as a team and we start looking at those laws and saying, yes, no, maybe. Here's what we might be able to impact. My job throughout the year is to start to contact different legislators from all over our districts and introduce us to the various legislators. Case in point, we just had Mark Takano from who's District 39 present today, just a greeting and some of the more important laws on the federal level that he's working on. So we do a lot of that interface, and it oftentimes shows up in our HR Power Hour, which I believe you have been one of our stars, and will continue to be.
Star, but definitely it was a pleasure to join, and I hope to do that more often as well.
Next week, I hope.
And you definitely put that information out there for people to be aware of what is coming, and we greatly appreciate that. And it helps Michael and I also, as you suggested, cull down those laws that are coming out of which ones can we actually make a difference in, which ones can we support. Obviously we support these innovations and changes, for example, artificial intelligence, and the changes in a certain way that are done in a smart, fair, and reasonable, balanced way,
equitable way.
So we're not also putting businesses out of business, right, at the same time. So what we do as we approach our conference for SHRM California, we at that conference in Sacramento, we bring it down to about 3 that that our attendees have the opportunity to go with us to the Capitol and speak with legislators about some of these proposals, whether we support them, whether we don't. If we don't support it, why? A good example from last year was the right to disconnect,
Right.
Which was one of those proposals that we did not support because it would have an adverse impact on employers being able to work with their employees, create other causes of action under PAGA. Oh wait, I just said it. Sorry. Cheers.
Oh.
I'll try not to say it again.
Oh, okay.
So, so what we'll do is we'll get about 3 of those, and it becomes very exciting when people
It
are
is.
in person, get to talk to the people that make these laws and have an impact. And we did a lot of good work this last year and made a lot of differences, and we hope to do so in 2025. Now, for what I wanted to get to most importantly is talking a little bit about wildfire relief and what we're going through. Everybody knows, and even today, I think there's 3 new fires out there that are trying to be contained. It is affecting our state in a vast and major way, and people that we love. I have so many dear, close friends and family lost homes and businesses and don't know what to do. And in an instant, their life has changed. And these people we care about, and they're in our community. What's been your experience?
Well,
So
I have to say mine is pretty up close and personal. I'm an Altadenan for 25 years. I just moved to Riverside 2 years ago. At 6:40 last week, was it last week, the week before last, one of my dearest friends called me and said we'd been evacuated. She lives right next to Eaton Canyon. And between, I guess it was 6:45 and the next 2 days, about 17 of our friends have lost their homes. So one of the things I'm very proud of, and one of the resources that I was sharing with Eric today, is that PIHRA Pasadena had put out 2 very exciting programs where they talked about the resources. They have created a spreadsheet, which I'm sure we are going to be incorporating in your list. And that spreadsheet speaks to the various ways you can volunteer and provide relief. Now, I went out to the volunteer sites, and I have to say it was my son and I both did. And we were there by about 10 o'clock in the morning. We couldn't volunteer for anything that Saturday because all of the people were volunteering. There was food, there was clothes, there were shovels and rakes, and you name it. It was fabulous. And as sad as it is to know how many of my personal friends and my son's friends from high school and grammar school have lost their homes, that the community can rise up. And that is indeed what PIHRA has done. I'd like to say that at PIHRA, we get things done, and we do.
We do. We do at PIHRA and globally. Sure, in California, we come together and we try and make these things work, and we will get through this together. That's why we want to continue to try and provide these resources. So this particular podcast, in the landing page, you're going to have so many available to you. And please reach out and give us feedback if there's something else that you need in that regard.
Right.
One of the things that I get questioned about is, okay, this is employment law. So as employers, what are our obligations? So I'm going to run through just a few of the things to keep in mind. The presentation that PIHRA put on yesterday, which is going to be available, will go into much more detail, but things to really keep in mind, of course, air quality, especially with our employees who are working outside construction, et cetera. There are requirements under, now we have OSHA, which is federal, and then we have Cal OSHA, which is California. The resources for California OSHA are with the Department of Industrial Relations, and there'll be a link that you'll be provided that talks about the employer responsibilities. In a nutshell, it's about making sure that it's a safe, healthy environment, and air quality is the focus. Now, there's what the measurement is called AQI, Air Quality Index, that is measured, that employers are required to measure and make sure the employees are in a safe space. And if it goes above a certain number, at 150, if somebody does not have underlying issues, if somebody is susceptible, it's over 101 of AQI. There's obligations to provide N95 masks, protective equipment,
Right.
instructions, notifications as well. So there is actually quite a bit, too much to go through now, but that landing page will be there and it's updated regularly through Cal OSHA. And there's also some resources about how you can track in real time the air quality in your area. And so it changes all the time. So you need to be aware, especially if you have outdoor employees, of what that
Right.
is. Now, one thing to keep in mind is AQI meters are not as sensitive to larger particulates. So if it's large pieces of ash, those types of things that come with the wind, and of course our winds have kicked up again, the AQI might not show it, and employers are still responsible for it because they can see the ash, they can see the particulates,
Right.
right? So even if the AQI seems to be in the green for you, you still have to have visually be aware of what can affect
I would
employees.
suggest a mask at that point,
Right.
9.5 mask.
So, and remember, those are typically, unless they go into severe issues over 150, are optional. We provide to employees. So some employees might be resistant. There's a stage where they're optional. There's a stage where you can make them mandatory. So keep that in mind as well. One of the other things that comes to mind when it comes to employers and what do we do in these moments is obviously leaves. I mean, we're in an evacuation zone. What are our obligations?
Sure.
Now, a law came out not too long ago in California when we are in an emergency situation, which obviously California is, and especially certain ordinances, also clarify in like Los Angeles County, especially. We cannot retaliate. We cannot discipline an employee for leaving because they have a reasonable belief that we're in a hazardous situation. Now, that reasonable belief, is it can be overstretched at certain times, so we have to be careful with that. But generally, especially in these moments, we want to be relatively liberal in these spaces. Right. So be very careful about, well, we're not exactly in an evacuation zone, but they didn't show up to work. Be cautious with that. Talk to your employment law attorney, especially if you're on the fence of whether this is appropriate or not. And you also want to be the organization that is taking care of our employees.
Right.
We always have the ability to be, of course, we have to follow the laws, but then we can also provide more resources than the law requires.
I also always suggest communicate. Just
Absolutely.
little things, telling our employees about airnow.gov made a big difference.
Yep.
Reminding them about respirators, telling them to look at the sky. If it's dark and gray, that's likely to be ash. It's full of all kinds of compounds that may not be healthy. So these are the kinds of things. Be generous with your leaves. If somebody, if I was asked a simple question, the air quality in my neighborhood, where you have people who are working hybrid or working remotely. I can't concentrate, I have a violent headache. Take a look at airnow.gov and see, oh my goodness, it's unhealthy for sensitive people.
Yeah.
That might be a good time to give some flexibility there, sure. Not be rigid, and give them a health day, relief.
And for those employers that are, well, I'm worried about, setting a precedent, and when we're out of, an emergency situation, this is my thought on that. Currently, we are in an emergency situation, and
no doubt.
There could always be, as time goes by and we're far away from it, and employees, say, well, you did it back then. Well, we were in an emergency situation. That can be a reasonable, legitimate business reason to have some differences in how you're providing leaves than you are in a non-emergency
Eric,
situation.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Since we have been declared a federal disaster zone, mm-hmm. Can that help us in defining what emergency situation is? Say if you're located perhaps in Pasadena or in Culver City, very close to the Pacific Palisades, if we had to justify it in any way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And we did this also during quarantine, right? During that COVID, period of time, employers were obviously required to send everybody home.
Sure.
And then during a period of time where that was no longer a state of emergency, and employees are saying, well, you did it back then, employers could legitimately say, hey, we were in a state of emergency. This was a health situation. This is different. And that's why things are changing. And that's why we're changing our policies.
Right.
Back to the way they were prior to emergency, or we've modified it. So really good question. The other thing that comes to mind is, of course, protected leaves. There's the things that we want to do to be there for them. And there's the things we're obligated to do. And the first ones that come to mind are obviously family medical leave, which if you have 50 or more employees, and then California's CIFRA, California Family Rights Act, which is 5 or more employees, which is almost every employer.
Right.
And if they're being impacted, and if people have underlying asthma, or they're going through some type of chemo treatment, there's all sorts of things that this type of air quality can exacerbate. And so there's no magic words that they have to trigger, just enough to know that they have a serious health condition that impairs their ability to work, that you have to put out that information for potential leave. Now, those will go with medical documentation, those types of leave. Can also impact, and remember also, CIFRA has a lot of more qualifications in there than FMLA.
Right.
So they could also be taking care of a family member that's affected by the fires and medically. And CIFRA also goes so far as to have designated people. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual direct family member. It could be their designated person that they can designate once a year.
Right.
So there's all sorts of ways that this can actually impact a potential leave that's protected under the law, and goes beyond just being the good employer and giving people some time.
And might I add, from the HR perspective and benefits, most employers have employee assistance programs.
Yes.
And there is a lot of anxiety that goes along these disasters.
Yes.
People worried about their children, they're worried about their parents, and that's a good time to get help. Those employee assistance programs are beautiful. So, remember, again, the employer, I suggest have a heart. Make sure that you not only put it out, document what's going on, what resources are available to your employees, but also should they be, experiencing any kind of anxieties, that they have the employee assistance program, and it's always good to talk.
I agree. And most of our benefit programs around California have that as an option. So my clients that have it just send a reminder out to everybody. You don't want to force people to do it, but make sure they remember that it's out there as a resource. There's also quite a few resources, before I get into some more of the direct legal, that will be on the landing page about loans for small businesses. So the Small Business Association has that. As well. There's a lot of financial relief that's coming through. So we're going to put as many of those options out there on our landing page as possible, because financially people are hugely impacted. Remember, there's also, state benefits, unemployment, et cetera, state disability that could be impacted as well. But so FMLA, CIFRA, again, even if somebody is a brand new employee, think about ADA and PIHRA. They can be there for one day, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is federal, and the Fair Employment and Housing Act, which is state, is going to apply. Meaning that if they have a medical condition, it doesn't necessarily have to be an overt disability, or it could be temporary, especially if it's something that's affecting air quality. You might have to engage in the interactive process and have that conversation about what's a reasonable accommodation. And usually that's time off. It might be, providing materials, masks, equipment, those types of things, but have those discussions, because those obligations might immediately trigger.
And document them. Please
document.
Sorry.
No, you're speaking my language. Thank
you.
That's why I love having you here. Because if it's not in a document, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So all of that, I think, is really critical. Now, one of the other aspects that might pop up is, of course, wage and hour issues. Sometimes there's closures, those types of things. So I get questions of, well, we're closed, and we closed on Tuesday. So I don't have to pay my employees, right? And my answer is, well, it depends. Are they exempt employees, right? An exempt employee is not paid by the hour. If they work anytime during the week, they're entitled to their entire compensation. Now, if there's other reasons that they're out, of course, if sick pay, those types of things are implicated, there can be deductions from those. But remember, you're not just paying them by the day. If they are hourly employees, then there's reporting time pay. What time did they show up to work and then they were sent home? Are they on call? Those types of things. So remember, especially in California, especially with the Private Attorney General Act, I didn't say that. So I'm not
the naughty word.
it's really important to make sure we're being diligent in the wage and hour laws in these moments, because the times we're working and those types of things are in vast flux. Yep.
Great.
And let's see, did I have anything else I wanted to mention on those?
Well, let me just give a quick reminder on reporting pay. Reporting pay, if there's no work available, that we at least have to give them, the non-exempt employees, 2 hours of pay, up to 4 hours. So that's critical because, again, it's a bewildering time for those employees and a frightening time for the employers too. My experience is most employers want to do what's right, but they're tremendously concerned about the bottom line as well, because they want their employees to come back. They like to have a business to come back to. So you have to watch the bottom line.
Very good point. One of the other things that does come up, especially during these emergencies, is our employees that are called by National Guard or military or emergency services to serve. There are a lot of rights that go with that. So make sure that you're aware of what type of emergency services they are volunteering for, what period of time that might be for. There are obviously reinstatement rights and no retaliation laws, especially during certain periods of time.
Sure.
Many of these might fall under UCERA, which especially goes for military that are called in for emergencies and other short-term emergency services. And there are a lot of requirements under that law. So make sure you're navigating that appropriately if you have employees that are volunteering and being called in, because their rights are and should be vast.
And there's also the Civil Patrol, is that not? Is that
another one? Yep, absolutely.
You have to be concerned.
So there is a list of those. So be wary of that, and that there are a lot of protections that you have to navigate in those moments. So I promised to mention just a few of the 2025 laws before we close. We don't have a lot of time left over, but I'm just going to mention just a few things to keep in mind. One of those is, of course, the shifting in artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, especially with the Civil Rights Department, is shifting as far as who is responsible. There isn't a particular bill out that has been passed yet, but there is one that's been proposed at the beginning of January on discrimination and bias related to artificial intelligence. What is key to take away on this is that employers are going to be responsible for any biases or discrimination when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence platforms. Third-party platforms may also be responsible under employment laws with the new changes. So you may not consider yourself an employer, but if your services are being used, you may fall under the Fair Employment and Housing Act as an employer under recent case law and these upcoming laws. So really important to keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
And making sure that if you're using AI, which is wonderful and we embrace it, but that you understand what your obligations are for your employees, and especially privacy issues and not uploading private information, those types of things. The other is, remember, there's changes in bereavement leave that we're at 5 days now. I know a lot of people did not notice that changed, so make sure you are aware. There were some changes to under the Fair Employment and Housing Act and discrimination laws about recognizing what we call intersectionality. Intersectionality now, even though we have all of these series of protected classes, race, color, national origin, gender, et cetera, now intersectionality is recognized, meaning the crossover between these two. So the way that looks and has looked in past cases that have been dismissed before is, well, my employer fired me because I'm African-American. And then they say, no, we have this list of African-American employees and, there's no evidence to do that. But now they can say it's because I'm African-American and female. And that combination is now the benchmark, not together. So if the resources don't show a fair treatment of African-American females in this hypothetical, then that is a new cause of action in and of itself. Sure. Right. So that is a significant change as well. Also, there's been added definitions of under race and color about hairstyles and those uses. So that is also a protected component now under the Crown Act. So we have to be aware of those. Those are, the primary ones just to be aware of. The Federal Pregnancy Fairness Act is another one to keep in mind. Typically, California, of course, always leads the charge on the most protective laws. We have pregnancy disability leave laws, but the federal Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act is actually more broad and provides more protections in California. And you have to be careful where we were in a place of what might be a reasonable accommodation for pregnancy disability, and you might be covered under California law. It is much more broad now in federal law, and you could easily violate federal law now and still be compliant under California law.
As I like to say, don't mess around with pregnant women.
Don't ever.
Never. Don't mess with them.
And never presume they're disabled.
That's
another
right.
So just some notes. There are many, and resources like PIHRA have obviously large presentations of all the different leave laws. That's why we've had these presentations for the last few months. But that's just a nutshell of the ones that I think might be most important. Hopefully these resources are helpful for all of you. My heart goes out to all of those, my dear friends and colleagues. My own co-chair in college relations, she lost her home. In any way that we can be there for you, we want to be. And to all of you, collectively, we will get through this together. And thank you all for listening. Thank you, Dana, for being here. Such a joy always to be with you and work with you. And I look forward to working with you in 2025 to make some good change.
We've got a lot to do.
We have so much to do. And that said, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
And cheers to all of you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Employers Legal Lounge podcast, presented by Michael Sullivan and Associates. Remember to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform so you never miss an episode. We release new content every month, ensuring you stay informed about the latest developments in California employment law. If you have any questions, topic suggestions, or would like to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us at msa.news/podcast. We'll see you next month with another episode of Employers Legal Lounge.